much 2 years ago, around about now. So, Seasons wasn't even thought of. Well, it probably was thought of, but it wasn't on anybody's radar at the time. So we never got Seasons for this. This map maker never made another map, so we will never see this map officially for Farm Sim 19. I don't know anybody who knows who made this map and how to get, whether they want to contact him and recreate this map for Farm Sim 19. I'd like it if they did, because I'd probably give it a go. But there's a bunch of older maps for Farm Sim 17 that never got upgraded for Seasons. Put that back. So that's basically how it works. If a map was modified with the snow mask, then Seasons will treat it slightly differently, and Seasons will compromise for any map that doesn't. So if you could find yourself Oldstream Farm version 1 or version 2, Seasons would play in a compromised mode. If you find Oldstream Farm version 3, which is on the mod hub still, that would play full Seasons rules. Yes. And I've noticed that on a bunch of farms. I mean, you look at Marwell Manor. I think even on Oakfield Farm, the edge of the map in 17 was fairly well hidden. I mean, if you look, if you move the camera around, you could eventually find exactly where the edge of the map happened. But for the most part, if you weren't diligent, you could play that and really not notice the edge of the map. Marwell Manor is very much, the edge of the map's hidden. You crash into it. The old streams. I mean, as you said, I mean, this is just effectively the edge of that. The edge of the map is a flat board. It's almost like a model railway where you've got a wall and you've just painted it blue with green trees at the bottom of it. On Oldstream Farm, what they did was they rotated it slightly, so it was almost like scenery for a stage play, where you would cut out a piece of wood that was vaguely tree shaped and paint a tree on it. But you could, you can then, with one person stand behind it, you could turn the trees to face as you walked past. So, and that's kind of what Oldstream Farm did in Farm Sim 17. So it was a sequence of sort of overlapping boards with trees painted on them that, as you drove past, would rotate so that they were facing you exactly. You still could see the edge of the map. The problem with that method was you could actually drive through the trees because they weren't a solid block like they are on this. I can't get outside of this map because there's a solid wall there. But there's a lot of ideas that people have used to make the edge of the map appear less, more seamless, should I say. Right, we need that off. We need to thing. So that's another field done.
Yep.
isn't going to reach. Yes, what was it? Marwell Manor and Oakfield Farm. Was it Oakfield Farm Bullet Bills, or was it Oxygen Davids? I think they're both Oxygen Davids. So yeah, and Oxygen David and Bullet Bill have both been refining their skills in order to make their maps look more realistic. I mean, even if you go back to, there was Chellington and what was the first one? Also Bang with a C. Coldborough Park Farm. They were also based on real locations and looked very good, and the edges of the map were fairly well hidden. And you kind of appreciate that skill set. A little drop.
Yeah.
Okay, where's my other? Oh, I won't find it there. So that was one. Okay, 33 is the other one. So straight over through the grass field. I was okay with the Anderson DLC. I think it's opened up the opportunity for me to consider poplars. I gave them a try way early on Goldcrest, and it was one of those things that I looked at and said, I really can't be bothered to do this because forage harvesters are a pain in the butt. And now when what was it? Sugarcane came out on the Platinum Edition. You got the sugarcane trailers, and they work quite nicely with a forage harvester because you can put stuff in the back and then high tip it into a receiving trailer. The problem is a lot of stuff that you would use a forage harvester for doesn't go through an auger, and so being able to high tip into a trailer, that works quite nicely. But yeah, it's also big. While it's kind of the whole collection trailers, which have a tip off the back rather than stack. I really wish I had one of those in this, because the sheds on this map are too low for the stacker. Where is it? I think oh no, I keep it down on the sheep farm. There. So this thing here, I cannot tip it up in that barn there to unload bales because the roof's too low. So I can reverse it into here, but as soon as I try to tip, I think I managed to tip in the middle, but that's the only point in this shed where I can actually tip that trailer up. Everywhere else you're hitting the trailer on the roof. And to have something that tips up 45 degrees and then pushes the bales off the back, that's nice. Is it worth $10? I'm not sure. I bought it, but I'm probably going to make some use of it, much like the the Kun DLC for 17. Apart from the baler wrapper and the square wrapper, most of the rest of the stuff in that was just, well, it's kind of like stuff we've seen before. But I bought the DLC anyway, and to be fair, that subsoiler and seeder I've used quite extensively, and obviously it's been bought as a part of Farm Sim 19. It's almost my go-to planting equipment. So, while there was nothing sort of great game-breaking about it, it's sort of stop the presses, we now have this available. It's useful equipment. It's a small DLC. It's not a big thing. I think the next one is probably going to be in the style of Big Bud. And by that I mean we're probably going to get a tractor or two and some equipment. Now, engine turned off while I was away. I have to get in the cab so I can see this. I'm going to guess, considering where their big Farm Sim announcement thing's going to be at the Class manufacturing facility, I'm going to guess that we might see Class tractors and some Class equipment. So possibly a harvester, possibly Class baler, and other Class branded equipment. Purely speculation on my part, but they've kind of set themselves up for that, and to produce sort of a series of Class tractors and Class equipment kind of fits with how, oops, let's turn the engine off on that, how the Big Bud DLC came out last year, or sorry, for Farm Sim 17. The engine turned off while I wasn't in it. Now, alternatively, it could be a John Deere DLC, although we have a range of John Deere tractors. What we don't have is the John Deere equipment. I kind of thought that potentially we might see sort of John Deere seeders, John Deere balers, auger wagons, that sort of thing, as the very first DLC for 19. Now, we didn't, and I'm not particularly upset that we didn't. I can get out of this now. Oops, I can knock the gate over. Yeah. Run this along the bottom of the field. I'm thinking we'll probably see similar this year to what we did last year, or for 19 is what we did for 17. So DLC 1 is a small equipment release, which is what we got. Two is probably going to be some motorized machinery. And some equipment to go with it. DLC 3 was the metal expansion, which is basically a new map and some stuff that fits on the map. So last time we got South America with Stara tractors and sprayer and seeders and stuff like that, auger wagons. So we'll probably see something like that for the metal release of Farm Sim 19 come November. And then potentially, I don't know, the last one last year was Roper, which I didn't bother buying because I was happy with the existing in-game potato and beet harvesters. I think the only useful thing there was the pretty much pick anything off the ground device, whatever that was. But to be frank, someone had already modified was it? Is it this one? This thing here, someone had modified that so that it wasn't limited to beets. You could pick up anything, so you could go and fill up a field, or no, I know some people actually filled up a silage bunker with stuff, and then once it was done, they would drive the modified Pterodos into the silage bunker and load a trailer with it. Not that in Farm Sim 17 you could tip directly into a BGA digester. Now I did find a sneaky way around that. When I was doing my playthrough on Farm Sim 17's Old Stream Farm, I bought one of those, and because the Old Stream Farm digester had a ramp up, so theoretically you could reverse a tipper up to it and tip it in, but it wouldn't let you tip. But I parked one of those alongside. I'd tip onto the end of it and unload into the BGA digester. So that was a way around not being able to tip into the BGA digester. Obviously for 19 that's now an option. So I think my other issue with JD is it's really expensive for what you get. If you're looking at equipment, yeah, I when I'm purchasing equipment for a farm, I tend to look at what do I need. So, let's say I go with a 6-metre seeder. Okay, I need 180 horsepower. So let's now look at ploughs that need up to 180 horsepower. Let's look at cultivators that need up to 180 horsepower, and I try to sort of that's the level of equipment I'm going to buy. Now if I decided, I want a cultivator that's 220 horsepower, because that was my driving goal, then I'm then going to look at a seeder that needs less than, equal to or less than 220, maybe go up to 225, but then I'm going to look at tractors and I'm going to say, okay, I've got 180 horsepower equipment, I'm going to need a 200 horsepower tractor or thereabouts. And a lot of the time I don't really care about what brand it is. I'm just looking for a tractor that can comfortably use the equipment I buy. If I was buying 200 horsepower equipment, then I might look for tractors that are 220 horsepower, but I'm not going to and then within that I'm looking for, do I need a tractor with a front loader? Okay, that limits my options. Do I need a tractor that can use narrow tyres? Okay, that's also going to limit my options. And then what's the cheapest one? Because that fits all of my purchasing needs, because I don't want to have to buy 3 different tractors if I can avoid it. And what I have found is generally for the ability, John Deere tractors tend to be quite expensive. However, they tend to be quite nicely balanced. So you get a John Deere tractor, put a front loader on it, and frequently you don't need a heavy weight on the back to balance it out, because the tractor is so well balanced. I don't have a lot of loyalty to any particular farm manufacturer. In this area where I live, John Deere's everywhere. There are a couple of farmers that have some very old Massey Ferguson equipment. We're talking 1970s, 1980s. And I have seen a New Holland T series, and I'm not sure, probably a T5, running around with hedge trimming equipment, which is kind of out of place in John Deere land. Yes, but then for that, actually, I need to jump somewhere here. I kind of like this tractor for that sort of range. This is an Axion 940, which has, I believe, 380 horsepower, and is perfectly adequate for every piece of equipment on this farm. And once I started the game with the green one. And since then, while I started with 6-metre equipment, I quickly decided, I need wider equipment because the turn radius on this tractor is not efficient to support 6-metre wide equipment. But 380 horsepower, it can cope with these hills, doing work with a full set of mowing equipment on it, which I was struggling with the JCB. Even the 8000 series JCB was having problems with that hill and hauling the equipment. It's not a full size engine. I believe this goes up to a 980, which is well over 400 horsepower. But the 380 is sufficient. And this mod is available Farm Sim 19, so chances are if I needed a 400 horsepower tractor I would actually consider using this one. However, because I tend to play smaller farms, this tractor is in my mind a little big. Yeah. Low 300s, probably not even, high 200s is probably the largest tractor I need on, even on places like Mercury Farm. You don't need one that big. Marwell Manor does need a bigger tractor because while it's a small farm, it's got big fields, so it does help to be able to haul big equipment. Thinking if I do Old Stream Farm, I may actually look at equipment that I don't generally use for stuff. Just to be different. Either that or I might go Massey Ferguson all in. Not going to fill it up, okay. Not to worry, this is practically full, so we'll go empty it. But yeah, most of the time, for most of the farms I work on, a 6R or 6M. Perfectly sufficient. I've got one of my farms I'm using a Valtra T on, I think. A lot of my farms I use the Valtra M. Case 7210 Pro, is it? The smallest of the medium tractors, has a really good engine size, or engine options. The only downside of it is you can't put a front loader on it, so you possibly need another tractor to go with it in your stable. But it's fine, it's finding equipment that's usable for your farm. buying a 400 horsepower tractor for something like Maypole Farm is a complete waste of money, because Maypole Farm is very small. Plus, you're probably going to have problems getting a 400 horsepower tractor turning on within the yard if you've built it up. I mean, there's some places in this map, in spite of the fact it's big, the problem is at best the entrance to a field is a double gate. In some cases a single gate, and that can make it very tricky to get this tractor through because of the handling characteristics of it. And it's partly why I've still got the Massey Ferguson 5600 on the roster, because that can get in and out of anywhere on this map with very little problems. The problem is there's no way I could haul this auger wagon loaded with the tiny Massey Ferguson. But this turn here is not the easiest of things. Makes getting into the field with the harvester and header a little difficult. It's one of the reasons why I've got the valve for hauling the header trailer around, because it's just easier. Tractor's a little bit more manoeuvrable. Oh, no. This matched up. 6.2. I will probably, before the end of Farm Sim 19, I will probably do a JD farm where I concentrate entirely on JD, but possibly when we have a few more mods or John Deere DLC that contains, you know, auger wagons and seeders and such, so I can have a full pure JD farm rather than just tractors and a harvester. But that kind of goes with my reason why I'm doing this particular farm type of approach. This farm started out as a prototypical Scottish farm, so we grow barley and the likes, and we have sheep. And it wasn't for about 2 years until I decided, we'll have some cows. And pigs were kind of a spur of the moment thing just over a year ago, where I said, I'm going to buy some pigs because I need to breed some, like 50 of them, to complete the achievement. So we did that in less than a year. But, you know, as we were talking about earlier, pigs breed spring, summer and fall. So they are still a prolific breeder. Sheep breed as fast as pigs, but unfortunately they only breed during spring, so you don't end up with as many sheep at the end of the year as you do pigs. And cows breed about one a day, with the number of cows I have. Anyway, let's this was up to 620, wasn't it? Just under 620. Okay. So next time it rains, I'll probably unload a few of those. Try and get that as close as possible to 800. over from farming dude, helper, and carry ourselves through it. Actually, I'm probably going to have to leave early. What do we have to do? It's coming up to 11 o'clock. Probably going to run to about 11:30, thereabouts. Because we have a bunch of stuff that we need to get done before 2 o'clock today. Stuff to talk about now, but there we go. I think on the subject of the roper equipment, my decision not to buy it for 17, from what I've seen of it, I attempted to do some potato farming on Mercury Farm, and I found the roper equipment to be a problem, especially the tractor haul stuff, because where is it? Potato equipment. Okay. The grime or grimmy, you get a header or a topper and the harvester. And you can run over the field and take the tops off the potatoes, and then you can run a second time around with this thing to harvest them. The roper tops and harvests all at the same time. The problem is that if you've got crop destruction on, you will take out the potatoes in the ground. So what I found was you still needed to buy the Grimmy topper in order to make the ground safe for a tractor to haul the harvester around with. And I thought, well, that's a bit naff. So it kind of works out that the Grimmy equipment, while you need two pieces of equipment, you need to make two passes over the field in order to harvest with it. Unless you've got a big enough tractor that you can haul the topper and the harvester at the same time. It doesn't destroy your crop, or you have to turn crop destruction off. That's one of the things I did here, is I do have crop destruction turned off, and that was because early on some of the mods I was using, in spite of the fact they had narrow tyres, the narrow tyres were not set up as row crop tyres. So they still destroyed the crop, and they still destroyed the crop to a width as if they were normal tyres. And that was a problem. So I turned off crop destruction. I still fitted tractors with narrow tyres when the work warranted it. But I didn't have the problem of the crop being destroyed because the modder hadn't set up his equipment definitions correctly to allow his narrow tyres to not destroy crop. I think I'm not using any of those mods anymore. We kind of outgrew them. For a time it was a problem. I'll still generally stick with the honouring the crop destruction without actually having it run. And I could do that in 19, but I just never get round to turning that particular option off. Here, about it. notice there's a little band of green here with no grass on. And the field itself actually used to come all the way out to this point here. And that's not enough room to turn around a harvester or a planter or anything else. So what I ended up doing was one year I did something, I can't remember whether I harvested or plowed or something, cultivated, but the point where the tractor hit the fence and then couldn't go any further, I marked to that point and then just ran across with a roller and it erased that part of the field. So that I have a tiny little headland that allows me to turn the equipment around. Worker on and jump back to the tractor. There we go. Oops, excuse me. There we go. How's that for timing? Okay. Nice thing about big harvest is that you empty really quickly. We've got about 70% of that unloaded. Oh, no, no. You do that. Stop. Stop. Okay, let's make over this job again. Oh, it's the end of the day already. Well, we got the soybeans harvested today in spite of the weather. It's not a bad deal. We've still got the corn to do. I'm going to be chaffing most of that. Actually, if I get this done, I can run the Lexion equipment back to the cow farm, hitch it up to the corn header, come back over to this main yard so that we can set up maybe for tomorrow some corn harvesting. Because we have desperately short supplies of corn when it comes to pig food requirements for next year. I'm planning to sell some of the pigs over the winter. I believe around about day 3-4 in the winter is one of the best prices for pigs. So we'll sell a bunch of them there. Bring in some income. I'll probably take the animal trailers round 2 trips. So we'll sell 2 loads of pigs, truck and trailer. And that will relieve the pressure on food supplies. Planning that the big field over to the right that's all oilseed radish green. That's going to be a cornfield next year. I'll probably do another one up by the main farm again, so we can keep the pigs supplies. The problem with the corn at the moment, the chaffing corn at the moment, is that I'm going to have to ship it all out to BGA. It's not a long trip, but it's an inconvenient trip because the problem of having the harvester sitting around waiting for you to come back. I think my setup this year should be sufficient, but I can probably do most of it manually. So I'll be driving the harvester, and then once the trailer's full, we can unload it. Possibly a couple of times before we have to drive up to the BGA and back. Assuming the numbers in the middle are just about there. Possibly sell some sheep. 126, yeah, 126 sheep. 161 pigs. Oh, they're still breeding. We're still in fall. So yeah, we're going to have a few pigs to sell. I might do more than 2 loads. Because that's another thing that Seasons introduced, was because of the variable breeding time and production on the animals. The animal costs also vary over the course of a year. I believe cows are really cheap come the beginning of fall, because obviously you're going to have to sit around and wait till summer before they start producing you serious amounts of money and breeding. Sheep definitely suffer. You have to feed sheep for the way I've set it up, 6-day seasons. I've got to feed sheep for 12 days in the year, and they don't make me any money on those 12 days in the year. They make me a fortune on the other 12 days in the year, because wool is quite valuable. I think we're averaging a sale at about 7,500 per 1,000 litres. Since a wool pallet is 2,000 litres, that's £15,000 per pallet. I can usually run about 12 pallets out to the store at a time. I usually save them up for a bit and then sell them all at once. But once again, yeah, wool is variable price. Bring the tractor in. So you're kind of looking at animal prices and wait until the cheapest time of the year before you buy them, and the most valuable time of the year before you sell them, to maximise your profits. I think it is possible to probably, because obviously selling is still subject to 50% value, or purchase value. But I think you can get to the point where you can sell an animal at the right time of the year and purchase it at the right time of the year, but you don't really lose an awful lot of money in it. Oh, Harvester's got stuck. There you go. Engine's off. Power's out. I think regardless of anything, I am going to enjoy getting seasons for 19. It's just going to be a matter of finding the right farm to play it with. Anyway, I think I will call it a day for today. I'll let this finish off harvesting this field. Put everything away off camera. In the meantime, everyone have a good weekend. If time and life allows, I will possibly be back later, taking some extended first looks at some of the maps that have come out in the last week or so. But for now, have fun, and I'm out of here.